Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 121, featuring the top 5 Delta Quadrant species. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we have got a very cool, very fun topic. I've been waiting to do this one for basically, it's been about a year once we found out that Trek Prodigy and this new series was going to be coming out. Going to be bringing us back Kate Mulgrew as Catherine Janeway, and was going to be set in the Delta Quadrant. As soon as I heard that, I said, oh, this would be a great topic for a preview show. We're going to do our top 5 Delta Quadrant species. And Prodigy is coming out October 28th, so we figured this would be a good time to preview it. Fun topic. We'll break down the series of Prodigy in our diagnostic cycle in a second. But first, let's introduce our guests. First up, he is returning for his third appearance on TrekRanks. It's one of, I guess it's a quarter of the 10 Backward podcast, a name that tells you everything you need to know about their great podcast. It's Rick Everson, hailing us very late from the England sector. Rick, are you there?
Hi, Jim. Yes, I'm here. Thanks so much for having me on again.
Great to have you back, my friend. And making her 11th appearance, our other guest, it's our good friend, the inimitable Claire Little. Claire, welcome back.
Hey, thank you. I've been here too many times.
So many times. We love it. All right, going to be an awesome show. Let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration.
Let's start with something small, like a recalibration of the EPS manifolds.
As regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 of the TrekRanks charters that we love Trek, and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. Remember, it's not about the ranks. That's just our excuse to talk about Star Trek.
But what is that Vulcan motto? Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
And what is diversity? But a celebration of differences.
And as to Paul and Dr. Phlox just said, TrekRanks is basically just a big old celebration of differences. There are no wrong answers at TrekRanks. Not about being right or definitive. It's just about sharing the things we love about Star Trek. And we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through Enterprise, and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery, Short Trek, Star Trek Picard, Lower Decks, Star Trek Prodigy, and soon Strange New Worlds. We got so much. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through 809 episodes of Star Trek, which currently translates through Season 2, Episode 8 of Star Trek Lower Decks.
Have boosted power to the communications bandwidth.
We appreciate that, Mr. Kim, and you can find TrekRanks on Subspace at TrekRanks.com, and you can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. You can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. All right, Claire and Rick, wrap this up. Why don't you guys let everybody know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace? Rick.
Yeah, I am on the Twitter at TrekFanRick, where I'm always up for talking all about Star Trek all day.
I love it. A great follow. And Claire, tell us your new handle.
Slightly different from the old one. I'm isolinear chip now instead of isolinear chick, which, depending on the audio here, you might not even hear the difference. But it's chip, and there is also an underscore after the P because someone else already took regular.
Of course, there's no way that was going to still be available.
Yeah, I know.
All right, let's get into our level 1 diagnostic to get into this topic.
Run a level 1 diagnostic series. Come.
All right, so really quick, for this week's diagnostic cycle, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Star Trek Prodigy, which is the 10th televised Star Trek show in the franchise's 55-year history. It's now the 3rd animated show. So obviously we got TOS, the animated series, TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, Prodigy, and soon we'll have 11th with Strange New Worlds. We also have Short Treks. Anyway, this is the 10th Star Trek show to debut, and its first episode will air on Paramount Plus on October 28th. And of course, it's the first Star Trek show designed to be kind of an entry point for kids into Star Trek. So from everything we've heard, it sounds like it'll fit right into that kind of nice Pixar sweet spot where it's great for adults and really enjoyable for older viewers, but is specifically designed to also be an entry point for younger viewers and kids, something Trek has never had. And please, if you're one of these, don't be one of these people. But I watched TLS or Voyager as a kid and I loved it. Of course you did. We all did. But none of those shows were designed and prepped initially as an entry point for kids. That's the difference here with Prodigy, which is really cool. So the show is about a ragtag group of youngsters who end up on an abandoned starship, and they're exploring the Delta Quadrant with the help and guidance of Janeway tutorial holograms. So I just thought that was cool. Love that premise. So I think this topic is going to be a lot of fun. We can get into a little bit of a look back at Voyager and the Delta Quadrant and pick our top 5 Delta Quadrant species. Lots of new planets and races and species in Voyagers. Some, I think, probably more successful than others. And I think Prodigy is going to be a good way, hopefully, to kind of revisit a little bit of that. So one thing, we're not going to include the Borg, just in case anybody's thinking Borg. We've done that. Episode number 72 of Trek Ranks, top 5 Borg episodes. We're just going to break down, 168 episodes of Voyager from 1995 to 2001. That's our canvas. Let's get into it. Prime directives.
But what you're proposing is exactly the kind of tampering the Prime Directive prohibits.
Okay, Rick, we're going to start with you, man. How did you break down your picks and come up with your list?
Okay, so for my Prime Directive, I didn't want to... I thought the best thing was just to pick out the races that I thought had the most interesting concepts, the ones that really stuck in my head as sort of stand out a little bit for something more unusual. So while there's great races in the Delta Quadrant, like, say, Telaxians or Kaizon, I want something that had a bit more of it, and I wanted something that was specific to the race. So I kind of eliminated myself from the Wink of an Eye episode, because that's more about the planet than the species.
Oh yeah, yep. Blink of an eye, yep.
Big stuff. I said wink of an eye, didn't I? Yeah. Mixing my TOS. So that's basically, I'm looking at trying to find the best concept, but specific to the species.
Okay, I like that. So very concept, species driven, as opposed. So there might be some good deep cuts there. I like that.
I hope so.
Claire, how about you? How did you break it down?
So I actually had a pretty similar approach to Rick. I was more interested in just like cool, interesting species that catch my attention, things that immediately, that I remembered from the first time I watched when it aired, stuff that had stuck that long. I also limited myself only to species that had been found in the Delta Quadrant at the time that Voyager aired. So that would have been no Borg anyway for me.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah. And also, Jim, I just want you to know, species is really broad. Technically, that's any life form.
Right. All right.
And you know me. I just want you to know that I did restrain myself. Leola root is not on my list, but it could have been, because species, hey.
Should I change it to sentient species?
Well, that was the thing, you didn't. And I was like, should I ask him, or should I just make you think, wonder if I'm going to pick like the worst choices possible? I did almost pick the virus from Macrocosm, but I didn't. So.
From her previous Trek Ranks appearances, Claire is very literal. We like that, though. That's awesome.
But hopefully playful at the same time.
Yes.
So like literal, but also annoying. Literal and annoying. That's what I go for.
No, not annoying at all. I love that. I liked it. You said, I think you said catch some species that catch your eye. So I think that's a cool way to do it too. That just jumped out at you. So I think we're going to have a good broad coverage here, because I did it very differently. I knew my number one right away. And then from there, I had a long list of kind of big foils and also maybe some smaller, cool, distinctive species that maybe weren't a big focus of some episodes that just stood out that I liked. So I think I got a good mix. I did, when I got to the end, I helped me narrow it down by making sure they appeared in at least 2 episodes. So there's no one-timers on my list, but that does include 2-parters. So yeah, I love this topic. I think I've got some prominent big aliens, and I've got some deep cuts. So we may have some duplicates. Who knows? We're going to find out now in the new order of things. First Cadecaton.
It'll be alphas like us that determine the future of this quadrant. That will be the new order of things.
Thank you, First Cadet Catan. As always, a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, everyone will start with their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each reveal our top 5 Delta Quadrant species and the specific reasons we're highlighting it, and we'll all associate that species to one episode of Star Trek. As you know, I love to keep my episode tallies. And at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Rick, going to start this off with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 Delta Quadrant species?
Okay, so my 5 words: no justice like telepathic justice. And my hashtag is thoughts for sale. It is the Mari from season 4, episode 10, Random Thoughts.
Ooh, that is a deep cut. Random Thoughts, underrated episode.
Absolutely, I love this episode. It's one of those ones that I just think that the whole bizarre or bizarre to us system of justice that they have, the basis of the episode is that a guy attacks another person violently, and then there's following violent crimes, all based on one violent or angry thought that B'Elanna has. And they have this idea that because B'Elanna had the thought, she's guilty of the crime. Whereas normally we would obviously think, if we have the thought, it's on us not to act on it. But the people who act on it are considered innocent. They track it back to whoever had that original thought. And I thought, it seems crazy to us, but I suppose in a way of a telepathic race, it's an interesting and terrifying idea, because they nearly wiped B'Elanna's memory for it. So, but yeah, it's just one of those fascinating ones I can really get into. It is really fascinating species in terms of the black market for thoughts, and I love where Tuvok goes in this one. I'm trying to remember now. Are they just look straight up human, right? I don't think there's any forehead ridges or ears absolutely. Or anything, right? Yeah, it's completely human. Yeah, because Gwyneth Walsh, Lursan Beitor was the police chief. Yes, yeah, so. And I think that her debates with Tuvok as they go back and forth about the justice system. Yeah, it's really cool. As well.
I suppose I was a little annoyed. Can you be more specific? All right. I guess I was thinking my foot hurt. I mean, the idiot stepped right on it. Did you call him an idiot? Of course not. But you thought it. I guess so. Did you also think about retaliating? It was an accident. But you said he hurt you. It didn't occur to you to hurt him back? I'd never do that. But you thought about it. How am I supposed to remember? Yes or no, did you think about hurting him? Yes or no? Well, maybe for a split second. Hey! I mean, he should have been watching where he was going. But I realized that he didn't do it on purpose, so I shook it off and I left. Why? What does it matter what I was thinking? Lieutenant B'Elanna Torres, you are under arrest. On what charge? Aggravated violent thought resulting in grave bodily harm.
Great deep cut pick. Claire, what's your take on the Mari from Random Thoughts?
I love this episode, and this is one that has just always stuck in my head, because I think the black market, like these guys just meeting in a back alley to swap violent or emotionally titillating thoughts. Yeah, there is so much allegory and metaphor that you can draw for that for so many different things. It's definitely one of those episodes that feels very much like Star Trek taking a contemporary issue and examining it, but it's not so specific that it's this is the X episode. It's is this illicit sex trafficking? Right. There's just so many things that you could look at. Is this repressed homosexuality in a culture that is totally against that? If you want to watch it that way, yeah, it is. Yep. But if you want to watch it some other way, it's something else. But yeah, it is super interesting. I
was going to say that how they portray it, I'm not going to say it is sexual, but it's not sexual. There's something about it where it's oh, this is really
right. It can be also just anytime we get to see Tuvok kind of be a little darker. Yeah. With that's always fun.
Yep. Wow, that's an awesome start, Rick. Good deep cut pick. And it's like Maori, M-A-R-I or something?
M-A-R-I, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, random thoughts. Love it. Claire, how about you? What's your number 5 pick?
All right, my number 5 pick.
Leola Root.
No. They are the Teresians from Favorite Son.
Oh my God. So now we have random thoughts and favorite son as the first 2 picks.
So my 5 words are, Kim is interesting? Oh, never mind.
Oh my God, that is the best 5 words on hashtag, because that's my exact takeaway from this episode. Sorry, keep going.
No, it's okay. Hashtag death by snoo snoo. In case anyone doesn't remember this real standout of an episode, basically like space sirens lure Kim to his death by basically making him start to have these superpowers kind of start to emerge. And then, it turns out that he's actually this alien from this random race of only women.
That's the interesting part.
Yeah, exactly. And they send the men out, and then the men come back. They're like drawn back to the home planet to mate. It's very like Black Widows and sirens. And of course, it turns out that A, Kim is totally human. B, these people kill the men that they mate with, and so that's not good. But C, it's also hilarious. Like it's one of those. It's not meant to be funny, but it's funny. I mean, like Kim doesn't have a lot of luck with the ladies, and when he does, it's like the worst possible kind of luck. But the reason that I chose this and the reason that's stuck in my head is, I'm not going to lie, like the first half of this episode, when I was 12 and watching it, I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. Because like, who doesn't love the idea of secretly finding out you're an alien and you have superpowers? This is every like X-Men origin story. Yep. And I was just the right age where I was like, am I going to have laser beams shooting out of my eyes the next time I get bullied in the locker room? Because this is like, I'm like ripe for a manifestation of superpowers. Of course, it didn't happen, but
it's a great call, because the first half of this episode is actually pretty good. Now, this is definitely this is a bottom 10 episut on TrekRanks, full disclosure.
No, it's
because
fine.
The second half is just kind of it's just not satisfying. But they're really interesting species, and I love this deep cut pick. My last takeaway is I love that the actor who's in this is really well known. Patrick Fabian. He's in like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and like Buffy not Buffy, Veronica Mars. He's just really well known actor. Anyway, Rick, what is your take on favorite son and the Teresians?
They were actually on my secondary systems. They are a great concept. I'm not sure if the episode necessarily executes it all well, but yeah, the concept of it, that's a great, crazy way for them to perpetuate the species. Although you kind of like, as you're watching it and Harry's drawn in and he's like, he's hailed as this great guy, and the way his life suddenly turned around, and you're thinking, did Harry Kim write this episode?
Right. That's superb. I love it. All right, let's close out round 5. I'm going big with my round 5 species. I really had a tough time narrowing down my 5th pick. So my toughest cut, you'll find out when we get to secondary systems. So here we go. 5 words in a hashtag. Got something a little bigger, hashtag in your torpedo tubes. And of course, it is the Krenim Imperium from Year of Hell. And we get to see them only in this 2-parter, Year of Hell. But I really like the species. I think they're fascinating. I like the variations that we get to see with like the weaker version of the Krenims that kind of show up to challenge Janeway when we first see them, which is the line, unless you've got something a little bigger in your torpedo tubes, I'm just going to keep going.
Good day, sir. Have we offended you in some way?
You will reverse course immediately. This region is in dispute. You have no business in Krenim space.
I was under the impression we were entering Zahl territory.
The Zahl have no legitimate claim here. They have taken what is ours. Reverse course, or be destroyed.
With all due respect, unless you've got something a little bigger in your torpedo tubes, I'm not turning around. But I'm certainly willing to discuss this issue with you.
No discussion, no compromise.
And then obviously Anorax is a really compelling villain that we get to see kind of at all these, like the height of his obsession, but then also at the end, we get to see him kind of return to his colony and his wife. And there's a lot of ups and downs for them in between. And I love the concept, temporal science. I love the Krenim weapons ship and the Chronoton torpedoes. And it's just, obviously it's a well-known and popular episode. And I just think the Krenim stand the test of time as a species that I would love to see more of. So Claire, what's your take on the Krenim?
Great episode, great characters. This was kind of on my list in the sense that
too big for your list, but yes.
yeah, I think that's what it was. But I'm really glad you mentioned it because it is like standout pair of episodes.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't work as well as it does without really good villains, who are sympathetic to a degree.
Yeah, it's the classic kind of sympathetic villain that you kind of understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
But still a villain. Rick, how about you?
I absolutely love the Crow. I love the year of Hell-Two-Parter and Anorax particularly. So it's a fantastic pick. It was something I was considering with the Krenim, but I think ultimately I maybe put that more down to Anorax and his own science being the crux of it from my Prime Directive anyway. But anytime we get to talk about the Krenim is always good.
Yeah, I think that what sold me is we get to see them at kind of different levels of where they're dominating and then where they're also like that when that guy first shows up and that Zahl guy's on the bridge with Janeway and he's like, ignore these guys. These guys are losers. We stole their space a long time ago. Okay, let's go to round 4. Rick, what do you got?
Okay, my 5 words are GUI mimic becomes sentient copy, and my hashtag is with tragic results. And I'm talking about the Silver Blood from season 4, episode 24, Demon.
Oh my God, that's a great pick. I did not consider them at all.
It's the whole thing that they are they're a very basic form of life that have just very instinctual, and they literally gain sentience by copying it from Harry and Tom. And I love that. And then because the whole thing that once they get a taste of it, they want more and end up trying to copy the whole crew. And then obviously my tragic results hashtag refers to their following appearance and everything that goes down there. But I think I stuck with Demon there because the concept of them as a species was just awesome.
I mean, this is a massive deep cut, but also super well known. And I mean, Demon's just a popular episode, of course, combined with
Course Oblivion.
With Course Oblivion. Yep, of course. Brilliant that we get to see them in 2. Love the Silver Blood. I actually really like Demon. I know a lot of people kind of don't like that. They think that one goes off the rail. I find it fascinating. Claire, what's your take?
I think A, love it. B, this is a great example of Brian Fuller at the height of his powers with Voyager, and also watching this again later on, you can kind of see like a theme between the way the demon blood or silver blood, whatever the biomimetic compound functions, and the mycelial network, weird shared consciousness thing that he is obsessed with that shows up in Discovery. It shows up in Hannibal. He has this thing for like conscious, subconscious consciousness that's just sort of like, it's not telepathy, but it's just sort of like threads under everything. He has a thing for that, I've noticed. And this is a really interesting early play, I think, on that.
Oh my God, I love that connection to the mycelial network. That's they have that kind of tone, and
yeah, it's like an ooze that spreads out and connects and makes
really interesting. I love it. Okay, Claire, what's your round 4 pick?
Right, my round 4 pick are the photonic beings in Bride of Chaos.
Yes, I considered them.
5 words are fiction playing real, playing fiction, hashtag I love a meta episode. Because it's true. That's honestly why I picked them.
Yeah.
I love the meta of exploring aliens that interact with us only through fiction, but they're like part of a work of fiction and they're interacting with other fictional characters.
Oh my God, I never considered that.
Yeah, but like, so you have like fictional, we are watching fictional characters who are watching their own, or in this case, playing, on the holodeck, their own version of essentially watching TV. of its fictional characters. And then these other fictional characters show up and are like completely incapable of even seeing that Voyager exists or that organic life. They just don't even register it. They see the organic life as being artificial, and they only see the artificial holodeck stuff as being real. And so I just find this like weird knot of like, we are watching fictional characters who are pretending, and then they have to pretend to be real, but like they try to explain to the photonic beings that, hey, this is all fake. We're just watching TV essentially. And they don't believe it. I also just want to do a side shout out to Heroes and Demons, the Beowulf episode.
Oh, yeah.
That does a similar thing where there's an alien that gets trapped on the holodeck, and the Doctor has to go in and he has to play through the plot of Beowulf in order to release this alien and also recover some crew members. And I just really dig that sort of thing.
Okay, I love that side shout out to Heroes and Demons, because that's a cool episode that is underrated. But the 3 levels of meta you just said on the Bride of Chaotica, I've never ever considered that. That's brilliant. I can't wait to rewatch it in that, because it is. It's literally like we're watching characters pretend to be characters. It's that.
Yeah,
really
and like
good.
Like
oh my God.
It only like Janeway doesn't want to play this role, and she has to. I mean, it's literally about playing roles, but it's also actors playing characters who don't want to play a role. It's just like, I love it.
If you diagrammed it, it might be 6 levels of meta. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Rick, what's your take on the photonic beings in Bride of Chaotica?
I've got to go and watch it again, just to, like you say, view it on that multi-level. That's brilliant. I hadn't considered it, but yeah, the levels. Full disclosure, controversial opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of the Captain Proton thing in Voyager.
Oh, interesting.
No, it's just never really grabbed me. I know it's really popular, and I think it's a fun idea. It's never really grabbed me as much, but I kind of like the whole idea about the aliens there, and I really just now want to rewatch that with that view in mind. Alternatively, I love Heroes and Demons, so linking it to that is 10 points immediately in my book. So
awesome.
Delete this guy. Sorry, Rick, I had to. Okay, let's close out round 4 with my pick. This is my biggest deep cut. 5 words and a hashtag. The spirits of good fortune, hashtag, until you try to use them as fuel. And it is the Ankari and their nucleogenic life forms from Equinox, season 5, season 6, 2-parter. And this one's a little bit of a 2-for-1, because technically the Ankari are definitely from the Delta Quadrant. I'm not 100% sure that the cool little hummingbird dudes, the nucleogenic life forms that Ransom's turning into fuel, they always say they're from another realm, so they may not actually be from the Delta Quadrant. But so I included the Ankari, and I like the Ankari because they have a really cool makeup. It's definitely not like Forehead of the Week. It's almost like a giraffe kind of thing. I don't know what, I have no idea what Michael Westmore was going for with that, but I really think they look cool, like a kind of like a mix between a giraffe and a deer face, really long with a long oval mouth. I think they're really interesting. So I hate Captain Ransom. I love these nucleogenic life forms because the first time they show them, they like pop out and they're like, woohoo, we're happy to be here. We're the spirits of good fortune. And then Ransom starts turning them into fuel. I hate that. So yeah, that's my pick. Oh, and shout out, I had in my notes, shout out to Die Trying from Star Trek Discovery's 3rd season when we meet Admiral Vance, and he has a massive star chart, and the Ankari homeworld is on that star chart. I love that. So the Ankari, nucleogenic life forms. Claire, what's your take?
Excellent picks. Great episodes. Yeah, the Ankari are really interesting. I feel like there are a lot of examples in Voyager. I don't want to say that other Star Trek doesn't have as wild and out there designs, because that's not true. But I feel like the concentration of just sort of maybe more experimental designs, not just with the makeup, but also just with like, what kind of weird thing do we want to do this week? I feel like there's more of that in Voyager.
I think that's right. I don't know if that's because he was more confident in kind of what he could do on the short turnaround times, or if maybe the makeup had progressed to a level where they could do different things. But you're 100% right. There's a lot more full head makeups like these guys, these Ankari.
And also just like as far as the structure, like the societal structure of the aliens. I don't know if it's like they had gotten to a point where they were like, well, we've already done like big, strong, angry man, which trust me, there's a lot of that in Voyager too.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's also a lot of one-off alien of the weeks that are just like, what if these guys had a really bizarre social structure or something? Like, okay.
Well, that's part of the Voyager just had a really strong sci-fi conceit. Rick, what's your take on the Ankari and the nucleogenic life forms?
I was giving a lot of thought to the nucleogenic life forms, and like you, in the end, I decided I don't think they're technically from the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, I don't think they are either.
So I put them aside with like species 8472. But the Ankari, it didn't even occur to me that would that link. And
I cheated. There's
no cheating on TrekRanks. You told me that before.
Right.
But yeah, they have an amazing makeup thing. They are really quite distinctive. But yeah, I mean, I was really looking for an excuse to put Equinox in because I love Equinox a lot.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's fantastic. Like I say, the Ankari are brilliant in that they summon these spirits, and they're so happy to come through. It's like they're really cool with just being randomly pulled through from their other dimensional realm to just to sort of wave and look happy and everything. But obviously, yeah, you can sympathize when Ransom decides to start doing murders with them.
I'm like I was like totally rooting for them by the end.
Yeah, you kind of have to take this
anytime they were attacking Equinox.
Eat your soup, courtesy of a loyal establishment. Jolan True.
All right, let's go to the soup round. Rick, what's your number 3 pick?
Number 3, 5 words. Some extremely well-designed machines. # some kind of robot war.
Yes.
It's the automated personnel units from season 2, episode 13, Prototype. So I've kind of declared these guys as species in their own right, even though technically they're the product of 2 other species built to fight a war. Yeah. But fine. Because I just love the idea that they're built to fight this war, and then it looks like the war's going to end, the prospect of peace, but they see that as a threat to their existence. So they turn around, destroy their creators so they can continue destroying each other. And it's just like the most ridiculous form of self-determination I've ever seen. Let's wipe these guys out so we can keep fighting to wipe each other out. And I just really enjoy the bizarreness of their justifications for that. And then they keep battling.
Yeah.
Plus, it creates this amazing dilemma that poor B'Elanna is caught up in the engineering challenge to help these guys and ends up giving them the gift of procreation. She literally gives a race the ability to have children, but then has to take it away when she realizes what they're going to do with it. Yeah, always stuck in my mind how good they are.
It's an awesome episode. Shout out to Jonathan Frakes who directed this one, because it's so well directed, and it's just they're so menacing. By the end, it's like these guys are kind of terrifying, and the story with B'Elanna actually figuring it out and then having to pull the plug on her work and take that away from him. And Claire, we were just talking about this in the chat room, right? About I'll let you go.
Well, in fact, like I had it on my list as well, and because we had been talking about it recently, I was like, I'll pull it back. I love the fact that they are frankly goofy looking at first. Like I think that's really important though, because they are super disarming appearance wise. You don't look at this as a viewer and think, oh, that thing's got, spines and red laser beams and like, ooh, that's dangerous. Yeah, right, it's goofy. Right. It looks like something from like an old episode of Doctor Who. And that's exactly why I think as a viewer, like you're not expecting what happens. Also, like B'Elanna's not expecting what happens. She's also looking at this as like kind of a goofy, homely little robot.
Yep.
I also, Rick, you made a really good point. This is basically like, what if Asimov wrote his 3 robotics rules slightly wrong? Like this is the result. Instead of make sure that your creators don't, no harm can come to the creator. It's like, well, no harm can come to us. Like the robots, they want to keep living. It's very interesting.
And has that a little bit of that body autonomy, right to life.
Yeah, it's a nice,
just a little bit of that layer, because there's not a lot of that in Trek, but this is one that kind of touches on some of those choices.
Yeah, and it's a nice opportunity for this type of episode, which usually is about the medical officer having to make this kind of decision, or maybe the captain.
Right.
It's nice to be able to put it into an engineering perspective that doesn't happen as often.
Yeah, super cool. Awesome pick, Rick. I definitely considered these guys too. Prelor and somebody else, right? I can't remember. Anyway,
the Kravik.
They are terrifying. The Kravik.
Kravik and the Prelor.
That's a great name. Yep. Okay, Claire, what's your super round pick?
All right, my pick are the Kobali from Ashes to Ashes.
Yeah.
Before I couldn't remember what they were called, and so my notes originally had them as the Kim Rhodes Necro Aliens. So that's what they're really called. My 5 words are found family or forced family. Hashtag aliens are truly alien. So one of the reasons just as a reminder, this is basically the episode where Ensign Lindsay Ballard, who we have never met before, shows up at Voyager. She looks nothing like a human. She's purple and bald. Turns out that she died on an away mission. Her corpse was retrieved by the Kobali, who do not procreate themselves. They take abandoned corpses and genetically reanimate them and turn them into Kobali. So she has a completely different brain, like her taste buds. She can't taste human food the same way anymore. She doesn't think like a human anymore. And it's one of the few times that I feel like Star Trek really examines what it's like to be an alien.
Right.
Like we know the Klingons have 2 hearts, and we know that, so we see Troy is very empathic. We see the results when she loses that. But for the most part, we don't really have aliens who are like able to think really differently than other species because their brains are shaped differently. We don't really examine that a lot. But we see that with Lindsay Ballard trying to be Lindsay Ballard instead of being this Kobali version of her. I just think it's really interesting. This is another one of those that just stuck in my head since when I first saw it. Kim Rhodes is really awesome in it. Yay.
Yeah, shout out to great Kim Rhodes, genre actor in lots of great things. She's
I think it's the only time she was in Star Trek.
It is, yeah.
And it's also
most notably Supernatural.
Yeah, Sheriff J.D. Mills. It's one of the few times also that I feel like Voyager really deals with loss of a crew member. They talk about like having to replace components a lot, talk about damage to their ship. Like we know they lose people over the years, and they don't really examine that very deeply. The other thing is, the B story on this episode is all about 7 of 9 trying to teach the little Borg children to have fun. But it's really structured. It's the episode that the, fun will now commence line comes from. I really wish that the 2 stories crossed more because they clearly are meant to face off against each other. Because the Kobali are basically like friendly, touchy-feely Borg. They create families but they are assimilating people. People are dead, but they are taking these people and turning them into another species and putting them in another culture. And just like the Borg do, but it's loving. And in the end, that Lindsay Ballard decides she wants to leave Voyager and go back to the Kobali. She had been trying to escape from them. And then she realized, I just don't fit here anymore. And Janeway lets her do it. And I feel like that is such a stark contrast to all the times that 7 of 9 early on in her life aboard Voyager was like, screw you, I want to go back to the collective. And Janeway was like, no, I don't care if that's what you want. You can't do that. Like what you want is the wrong thing. And I just think there's a lot of really interesting parallels going on there.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, the difference being she was actually dead, but
right, but she was still essentially brainwashed like she didn't ask to be reanimated and to become another species and to have her she can't remember her human father anymore. She's been changed against her will.
Rick, what's your take on this one? I mean, it's a fascinating alien concept.
It is. I can't believe I didn't even think about it. I love this episode.
Me neither.
It didn't even occur to me, and it is such an incredible concept. I mean, there's so much to dig into and explore with that. Like you say, the whole kind of from Lindsay Ballard's point of view, they've completely altered her body, everything about her, and it's like that's a kind of extreme violation. It's like, and how she has to come to grips with that, and ultimately decide to go off and stay with the Kobali. It's kind of one of those things that you just wish they'd had 5 more episodes to really explore the meat of it all, because you could mine that for so much.
I really like when sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. When I think it's her father, right, that comes back, and he's just like, no, this is my offspring. I'm not leaving without her. It was really cool. It was alien, but it helped kind of put the point across.
Yeah, like I want, like she says she's been with them for 3 years. She's obviously an adult. She was, I'm gonna guess, in her early 20s, maybe when she died, late mid-20s. So, and her Kobali dad says that her sister misses her. So these people, they don't just create found families; they create found families out of adults, which I find like that's a dynamic that I want to know more about. Like it'd be like people adopting 30-year-olds. I'm sure it does happen occasionally, but I don't think it's particularly common to adopt an adult that you've never met before when they're an adult. Like, what is that like for them? I want to know more about their culture.
It is a very interesting concept. Cool pick. I did not think of this one, so I'm glad you picked it. Yay, Kim Rhodes, shout out. All right, let's close out the soup round with my number 3 pick. 5 words and a hashtag. I got another big one here. I'm thinking we might not have any duplicates. That would be amazing. All right, 5 words and a hashtag. Tiny Ron, Todd, and Hertzler, hashtag big, bad, and distinctive. And it is the Hirogen from my episode I picked as Message in a Bottle when they were introduced. And I love the Hirogen. They're, really big, important villain, obviously, in Star Trek Voyager. But I just think they were brilliantly executed from start to the finish. Their first appearance is in Message in a Bottle, which has nothing to do with the Hirogen. They're kind of an afterthought. And they're just the curators of this subspace relay network that they're using to send the Doctor back to the Alpha Quadrant. And I love when they show up because they seem kind of menacing. All you can do is really see them on the screen. You don't get an idea much about them. Seven zaps them. But then from that episode, they have this little Hirogen arc with Hunter's Prey and the Killing Game. And I just think the Hirogen they knocked out of the park with these guys. Just cool to have like a trophy hunting species. Everything that they do is centered around kind of the hunt, from their rituals to religious to their displays and all their rules driving their society. And the payoff with the Killing Game, I think, is really good. And I love that initially they kind of got away from this later in terms of the production side, but like the first few that we saw were all these big, huge actors like Tiny Ron, J.G. Hertzler played one in Sunkatse, and Tony Todd, of course, in Prey. So they made, I think they were in like 10 episodes. So I love the Hirogen. Rick, what's your take on the Hirogen?
Absolutely love the Hirogen. I did go back and forth for a bit about including them on my list because there's so much about them that's awesome. You've kind of covered quite a lot of it. I loved how they did the little mini arc going through from that initial meeting. It was almost like a little ominous thing, and then it got bigger and bigger until we sort of culminated in this big 2-parter. And I love the bringing them back in the last season, but you always got something a bit different, a bit new about them, delved a little bit into their culture. It would have been very easy just to have them as big, menacing hunter guys, but they went a lot further with it and really sort of fleshed out this idea with them, which I really, really enjoy. And anytime you've got Tony Todd and J.G. Hertzler playing them, I also really like they deliberately went for physicality. They picked huge actors. So every time you see the Hirogen against any of the Voyager crew, they're massive. They're like tower over them. And I just thought, that's great. Let's have that physical variety a bit more. Let's have a race that are just always like 6.5, 7 foot, because it looks great.
Yeah, the way they filmed Tiny Ron with Tuvok and 7 of 9 in Hunters when he has them on his ship is really, really cool. And I'll say too that they also had, they did a good job of kind of scoping out the society, because in Flesh and Blood they had the tiny little engineer Hirogen whose job was to get the hologram working. And that was a cool contrast. So I think they did a good job of fleshing them out. Claire, what's your take on the Hirogen?
Yeah, at first I was a little like, okay, another big scary whatever. But I mean, the Killing Game is so much fun.
So good.
Like, even if they hadn't fleshed them out and made them more than just kind of menacing bad guys, like, the Killing Game is awesome. Who doesn't love those episodes? But I also kind of like how they provide a little bit of contrast for the Klingons, because I feel like at first they might seem kind of similar. It's this like warrior race and they're big and they're kind of brutish and like, okay. But the more you learn about the Hirogen, it also kind of makes you realize that Klingon culture is a lot more nuanced than just the warrior thing. And we knew that, but seeing an example of a culture that leans much more heavily into that kind of shows you how much more there is going on. Like, I don't think there is Hirogen opera. I'll just put it that way.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point. No, that's a good point. That's hilarious. All right, let's go to round 2. Rick, what's your number 2 pick? Still no duplicates.
Okay, number 2. So 5 words. Life is but a dream. Hashtag as long as you see the moon.
Oh, no way. The sleeping dudes? What are they called?
They never have a name. Even in the script, they're unnamed.
Oh, how interesting.
They're just the dreaming aliens from season 4, episode 13, Waking Moments.
Okay, I must have known that subconsciously.
They blow my mind. When I first saw this episode, absolutely loved it. So they've got this collective unconsciousness, as Seven describes it. And it's just such an incredible concept that these guys spend the bulk of their time asleep. And that's how they interact. And from that, you make this perfectly sensible thing that you don't want waking species disturbing you. So they set this technobabble field up to basically have anyone passing too close fall asleep, and then you can face them on your own home territory. It's a great idea, and I like the concept of messing about with lucid dreaming and having Chakotay sort of get into that. And it's quite nice actually to have Chakotay really take center stage for an episode as well. Go through that. So it's one that I always enjoy watching.
It's an interesting episode. Yeah. The ending, I really like the ending and kind of the double switch and some of the tricks.
Yeah.
But especially the very end when he's like trying to stay awake and they involve the doctor, and it's really clever, really well done.
I like that they did the dreams within dreams things long before Inception took the idea. Right. As well.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, with the moon. Claire, what's your take on Waking Moments and the sleeping aliens? Another cool design.
Yeah, this is such a good choice. I'm really glad that we're talking about this episode and that you chose this one. Anything that's about dreams and sleeping is just automatically going to be interesting to me. And yeah, you're right. This is a nice. I feel like Chakotay's. He didn't like they gave him a lot of some opportunities to kind of like bring his culture and his heritage as like a specialty to solve a problem in an episode. Didn't always work for me, but this is an example where I think it really does. Yeah,
that's a really, really good point. This is one where Chakotay as a character does fit and influence kind of the narrative. I love that. Cool. Okay, awesome. Another fantastic deep cut pick. This is so great. Claire, what is your number 2 pick?
Well, I'm sorry, Jim, but you do now have a duplicate.
No, don't be sorry. I love it.
So my number 2 pick is also the biomimetic compound, but I chose to highlight Course Oblivion and not Demon. So
I love it. That's we're going to call it still a duplicate, but I love that you picked a different episode.
So my 5 words are the desperation to be known, hashtag which home is home.
Oh,
I think this is like the saddest. These guys are so sad. I think about them a lot. I got like when you told me what the topic on this episode was, I immediately thought about these guys.
God.
Just this question of like I think it's really significant as viewers that we see some of the most important interpersonal moments between some of our characters actually take place in this episode.
Oh my God, that's such a great point.
We never see Tom and the real Tom and B'Elanna get married, but we see the fake Tom and B'Elanna get married. And I pose this question to you: are they really fake? I mean,
yes, they are.
Well, I mean, they started life as like a giant T-1000 with no consciousness, but they really love each other when they're getting married to each other, and we as viewers celebrate their marriage through them. It's not like that. It's not like next week we get to see the real Tom and B'Elanna get married. All the stuff about the honeymoon, like when Tom is standing over B'Elanna as she's dying and he's explaining the honeymoon to her, that's one of the most intimate moments. Like it's got to be top 3 intimate moments between the two of them as characters and their relationship. I mean, but it's not even really them. So, but I don't know if it matters.
You're on. Actually, I was joking. I just wanted to do my little Tendi impersonation.
I took you literally. Sorry.
But I think you're right. I mean, it is. I mean, it's as real as an AI, or it's.
And there's and like
they don't show you anything to make you think they're not real. That's who they are.
No, and I think the ultimate tragedy of this episode is at the very end, like this fake crew is so desperate to have their short existence preserved, and their little time capsule fails, and the ship disintegrates, and by the time the real Voyager shows up, they're just looking at a random debris field. They don't know that they are looking at the false Voyager. Like, oh God, it's such a bummer.
Someday we're gonna do the episodes that are most difficult for us to rewatch, and this is going to be on my list for two reasons: for what you just described, but also because the makeup. Some makeups really disturb me, and this one it disturbs me. I don't like looking at it. It's too good.
I will say it's funny how their clothing doesn't disintegrate at all.
Yeah, that's like early season 1 Odo doesn't. His clothes are fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Rick, what's your take on Silver Blood Part 2 in Course Oblivion?
Maybe the cruelest episode for viewers.
Yes.
The only way it can be harder, and this is what happened to me. I hadn't seen Demon when I watched this.
Oh no way!
Oh wow!
What was that like?
Vagaries of UK TV scheduling and everything. I had no idea. So I'm watching this and thinking, oh, we've gone straight to Tom and B'Elanna getting married. Brilliant. Oh, what the heck? And I'm a big B'Elanna fan, so I was gutted. I thought, what's going on? And then by the time we get to this, what do you mean they're fake? What? And I got no frame of reference.
Oh my God, that's fascinating. I never even considered that, but it must happen. That must have been a thing for some people.
Yeah,
so
if you can relate it back to Demon, then it's probably a bit more helpful. But at the time, I was like, I don't know what you're saying. Why is everyone dying? This is horrible. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. Why?
Oh God, that's one of the reasons you didn't have serialized storytelling at that level in that era.
Yeah.
Because this really, unlike just knowing you kind of missed a piece, this one would be like, you would be confused. You would just be like, what is going on? You might even get angry, just be like, this doesn't make any sense.
You have to go through 45 minutes of some of the most heartbreaking Voyager you've ever seen, and you can't understand why. So it's beautifully done, but it's a hard one to watch.
I love that you guys both had that. Never even considered them. That's super cool. Okay, let's close out round 2. I got another big one on my list. I love these guys. 5 words and a hashtag. The hierarchy suggests we retreat. Hashtag activate the photonic cannon. And of course, it's the hierarchy, aka the Overlookers from Tinker, Tenor, Dr. Spy is my episode I chose. And I kind of think of these guys as like the Packlids of the Delta Quadrant, which is not really accurate, but I love the idea of an alien that has to kind of check in with their superiors at every level and process the analytics before they make any decision. They're just an alien stuck in this massive bureaucracy to just get anything done. And I think that was a really clever kind of twist on an alien of the week. And I think they did a good job. These guys appeared in like a couple more episodes, like 3 total. And I think they just executed them really well. They were a little bit of a humorous foil for Voyager, like the Packlids were. But in the end, I always felt like they had a real menace in that the guy in charge is going to execute his orders regardless of any kind of outlying factors. Whatever he gets back from their little submission pad to the hierarchy is what they're going to do. And I always liked that. So, and just so we know, the hierarchy, they're actually called the Overlookers, although that was never in a script or never in the show. But that's what they call the species. But the hierarchy is kind of what they're known as, because that's their government that they're always checking in with. So, Claire, what's your take on the hierarchy?
I love these guys. They were on my secondary systems. They're menacing in some ways. They are the adverse. I guess I feels wrong to call them bad guys because they're honestly
okay. So let me tell you, I'm keeping a stat. On enemy, friend, and neutral, and I've got these guys as neutral.
Yeah.
I don't think they're they just are kind of doing their thing. And they're surveyors and they're checking in. And if someone tells them, yeah, go get that or go attack that, they do it. But they don't have any. Yeah.
Especially like the actual guys that we see the most in the episode. Like you're right. Somebody high up who's making the decisions. If a bad guy is in that position, then bad things are probably going to happen. But I don't know. These guys, they're not.
But even that guy is being just pragmatic.
Yeah.
He's just like, okay, there's a ship and they're doing this and maybe we can get some resources off them to help us with this. So go get them.
And I really like the alien design too. There's something about like.
Really good. Really good.
You're right. They're similar to Pakleds, but Pakleds are clearly supposed to be kind of goofy.
Yes.
They look melted, like whatever.
Right.
These guys are just cute. Like I just want to squeeze one,
They are. They're adorable. Rick, what's your take on the overlookers and the hierarchy?
Again, a secondary system one I was having a look at for a while. I love it. I love that they look perpetually worried as well. It's like, guys, it's okay, chill out. What's wrong? But they are menacing because it's, and I love it's one of the brilliant things that we can have something like the Herosian, who are the massive, imposing, terrifying guys. Then we can have these guys who are actually just as terrifying because if that's their order, that's their purpose to take you out. With a Herosian, you might be able to negotiate, you might be able to persuade him, you might be able to appeal, but that's less likely with the hierarchy. So
the guy in charge is going to follow his bureaucracy.
Exactly,
that's what they do.
You haven't got that wiggle room. You've just got to hope that you don't get on the wrong side of their orders.
It's a cool concept. Okay, let's do this. Round one. Rick, what's your number one pick?
Okay, so this is the one that I knew straight away when you told me I was going to have. It's always my number one. So 5 words: singing Tuvox, unruly old children. Hashtag, he does not have his loot. It's the Drayans from season 2, episode 22, Innocence.
Oh my God, I love this deep cut pick. The Drayans are, what a concept.
I love this episode so much. It's like quite a simple idea, although admittedly it's kind of stolen from Mork and Mindy, that they're aging the other way to how we're used to it.
I'm realizing that for the first time. Sorry, I had to just expound. I had never put that together. Continue.
Yeah, so I don't know. I've never had the sense this episode is highly regarded, but I absolutely adore it because it's just kind of a great double bluff. Tuvok thinks he's having to deal with these unruly children and he's trying to bring all his own parental experience to bear on it and he's having a nightmare of a time. But ultimately, these kids say they're there to be killed on this moon. And he's going to come up and defend that what sort of barbarism is this? But it's not. It's classic cultural misunderstanding. And I really enjoy it. I can watch this again and again. I think it's fantastic. And Tuvok, bless him, does not miss a beat. He goes from being parental to when it's all explained, he undertakes this solemn duty to go and accompany what turns out to be an old lady for her last moments. And it's quite beautiful in that sense.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is. I'll be full disclosure. This is one of those episodes that when I first saw it, I just didn't like it. I didn't connect. I just, was in more of a mood for, big space opera and not this small little poignant story. I love this episode now. I rewatch it all the time. It's really well done. It's clever. Tim Russ is amazing in it. It's definitely on my list of episodes I've grown to love. Claire, what's your take on Innocence and the Drayans?
I think this is an awesome pick. This anytime Star Trek or anything really just takes something and just twists it culturally, just taking something and just saying, you know what, we haven't done this twist on it. What can we do with this twist? And they really do make an excellent episode out of it. Tuvok is the perfect character to have be kind of like the crew member to have it be about, I think. Yeah, this is a really good choice.
Yeah, it's awesome. Really, really clever. Okay, Claire, how about you? What's your number one pick?
All right, my number one pick are the Voth from Distant Origin.
Yes, the Voth.
5 words, Trek allegory at its best. Hashtag Dinotopia in space. This was extremely my shit as a kid. The makeup is amazing. I think it's pretty ambitious. It works very well, But more importantly, I think this is an example of Star Trek at its best because it takes what is frankly kind of a silly concept on paper, which is literally like, what if Earth dinosaurs got on a spaceship at some point and continued to evolve? But it turns it into and like uses that goofy concept to tell a really important and engaging story. It's not just about religious dogma versus science, but it's also about imperialism and McCarthyism. I mean, at some point, the minister shouts, "We're not immigrants," because she refuses to trust the evidence in front of her because that means she has to suddenly become an immigrant in her eyes. I hate her so much. She's a fantastic villain. I mean, she's horrible, but she's really good.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to turn this into a political discussion, but I was living in a super religious, super conservative area when I was a kid and watched this episode, and it wasn't eye-opening for me in the sense that I didn't really like. I already was definitely on the side of the scientists in this episode, but it was very comforting for me. I think.
Yes, right.
Like, oh, okay, other people also who are writing this, you know, making TV shows and writing these episodes, like there's like I felt represented in this episode, I guess is what I'm trying to say, by the dinosaur guy.
I love that. This is where my doctrine sucks mantra is basically formulated in the clearest, most distinct way, because doctrine sucks. All those Voth suck. They're terrible.
Lying before you is proof of the distant origin theory. These remains demonstrate beyond doubt that we arose elsewhere in this galaxy, that we evolved on a faraway planet and traveled to this space millions of years ago, our true history lost.
A pile of bones. Impressive.
This pile of bones belonged to a being who died approximately 1 year ago, from a species found nowhere in known space. And yet, we share 47 genetic markers with this being. We are undoubtedly related to him. And I intend to prove to you that we evolved on the very same planet he did.
And that planet is the long-lost world of the distant origin theory.
Yes, that's exactly right. And to find that planet, our planet, we must find a living member of his kind.
I'm so glad you picked them, because they were definitely on my short list and on my secondary systems. Rick, what's your take on the Voth and Distant Origin?
I'm really glad this got picked. I love the Voth. I love Distant Origin. I really, really was close, but ultimately I thought, aren't they technically Alpha Quadrant? I don't know. You know,
oh crap. You're right.
Oh my God, that's a great point. I never thought of that. Yeah.
They've lived in the Delta Quadrant long enough now that can be considered.
I mean, it's only been a few 100 million years.
But longer than humanity's existed. I think that qualifies them as. You know. But the whole episode is the starting point when we have the little bit they follow in Voyager and picking up the little bits of evidence and gradually, and it just puts the line of science through there. And then, of course, science hits this brick wall, and it's one of those things that's so reflected in society right now, where there's just completely irrational rejection of science going on all around us, and so it's an episode that's
scary how much more poignant this episode is now.
It's almost frustrating.
20 years later,
it's frustrating to watch it because you see it reflected in everyday moment. But it's a fantastic episode. I love the Voth.
Yeah. I think as frustrating as it is, I think it's entirely correct from a storytelling perspective that the minister is not moved at all by Chakotay's impassioned speech or the evidence. Like, you want her to be, but she's not. And that's the right way for this episode to end, just from my cynical perspective.
Well, that's how we see it. I mean, that's how it is today, too. These people doesn't matter what the science or the data or the facts say. They're just going to, keep their hands around. They don't want to. I mean,
it's immovable. They're an immovable object.
Yeah, it's a frustration. We all know it. Anybody listening to this at this point knows where I'm at on that. Doctrine sucks. Okay, let's go to my number one pick. I could not be more excited that this has not come up yet. I know that people are going to be turning this off as soon as I make my pick, and I don't care.
Oh my God, I know what you're doing.
5 words and a hashtag. Kaizon, their birdcage hair soaring, hashtag the sex are fun to say. It is the Kaizon, and my episode is Maneuvers from Voyager Season 2. And here's the deal, people. I love the Kaizon, and I know I'm in the minority, and I know that their makeup and their hair, the fact that they were pretty similar to the Klingons at a time when they probably shouldn't have been, are all pretty good reasons for people to not really have taken to them. But I don't care about any of that stuff. What I care about is that in the end, I think they were really executed pretty damn well on the show. The ongoing Seska arc from season 2 and Jonas betraying the ship and the Kaizon being part of that whole thread, I think was serialized storytelling done really well, way before it was, the thing. Even before Deep Space Nine was really doing it in that way, around the same time. But what they did with that, I really appreciate that the Kaizon were the key to that. And I think Maj Kola and the Kaizon Nistrum were pretty damn good villains. And I just appreciate that, what they were going for with these separate gangs and the infighting and the posturing. And, for a villain for Voyager for 2 seasons, I think they had him in there for just the right amount of time for, a ship that's supposed to be leaving and traveling through space. So I dig the Kaizon, and because my hashtag was the sex are fun to say, here we go. The major sex, the Kaizon Ogla, Kaizon Oglamar, Kaizon Relora, Kaizon Nistrum, Kaizon Mostral, Kaizon Hobai, Kaizon Pomar. I love them all, and shout out to Lower Decks and the amazing Kaizon joke in We'll Always Have Tom Paris. I have not laughed any louder at any moment in Lower Decks. I love it. Kaizon, Voyager. Clara, what's your take?
My friend. It's a good thing I was muted because I was laughing through that whole thing. The best thing to happen to the Kaizon was someone accidentally uploading that audio joke.
Of course. That's why I did not pick alliances.
So I don't consistently hate the Kaizon. I don't hate the Kaizon. I just think I was ready to be done with them. Like when Voyager finally got out of Kaizon space, I was like, cool, thanks. What's happening now? I think it was a really good idea. I don't know if it was executed that well consistently.
I think it's the opposite. I think it was probably not the best idea because they feel like Klingons 2.0.
Well,
but I think the execution of knowing that, okay, these guys feel like the Klingons, but I think they did pretty good executing them for 2 seasons. That's my take.
I read that the actual concept, originating concept for them was that they were based on
gangs.
Yeah,
it was supposed to be like LA, the Crips and the Bloods and that kind 90s, of thing.
Mid-90s gang,
which doesn't work in any way, shape, or form. It's really problematic. But on the very surface, okay, I get what you're going for, but let's stop talking about that because it's not okay.
Agreed.
So that's why I think. Anyway, Rick, back me up, man. You love the Kaizon, or you hate the Kaizon, or you're neutral? What do you think?
Well, firstly, I choose to believe that you weren't even reading all the sex names on there. You just regularly.
No, I was. I couldn't remember them all, but I do love saying Kaizon Nistrum.
You randomly stand up and recite those, I'm sure.
And I love that there's Kaizon Ogla, and then there's Kaizon Oglamar, so you know that they're kind of related, but they're separate. I love.
Well, this is the thing. I do love the Kaizon because I think there's a lot of crazy stuff going on there, like the Ogla and the Oglamar shit. Oh, it's okay. So there was a sect, maybe there was a split down there at some point, and
right.
When you get into the thing with alliances and the trade and the background, you kind of think,
the trade, yeah.
These guys, you see where a lot of their stuff is coming from, and you kind of almost, you start to feel a little bit sympathetic to the situations as they've kind of arisen. So I do like it, and I can't actually think of a Kaizon episode that I dislike. Really, I think
yes, Rick.
The one
way to go.
One with Aaron Eisenberg is stand out as a really, really interesting.
I thought about that one. I thought about that one.
Having Seska join up with them really added to it, and they are quite an overarching threat through it. We get I'm kind of I am with you there. I do like the Kaizon, I guess.
So Claire, I know you love the hair, right?
I actually, I do. I think it's hilarious. I love the fact that there are literal makeup sponges in their hair.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's actually, I honestly, I don't mind that. I mean, I think it's funny, but it's not offensive to me in the sense that it's oh, they should have done better. It's not like if they had put different wigs on, I'd be all over the Kaizon. So it's really not their hair.
Fair enough.
And you know what though, Rick? I think you're right. There aren't any bad Kaizon episodes. I think I don't know. I think I wanted a little more. It's like they needed to put some spice in there or something. It's like eating food that's not spiced correctly or something. I just needed a little bit more.
And that's kind of what I mean when I say that they're a little bit, I get that they're Klingons 2.0 in a lot of ways in terms of their motivations and the way they act and their single-minded kind of fight. They're just going to fight.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. That was fun because I like the Kaizon. and I get to edit this podcast. So awesome. Okay, let's go to our secondary systems.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Rick, what's on your list?
Okay, so a few of mine already came up, but I was thinking at one point about the Vardois from Dragon's Teeth.
Yes, they're on mine.
Really enjoy those. I had put the Vidians because I do like the concept of them, a whole race that ends up sort of being based around the idea of trying to find donations. It's small.
So I was going to mention the Vidian, and the reason I didn't pick them, and I'm curious, I'd really like the concept. I think it's a brilliant idea. I wish they had made them less monster of the week look, because it makes them scary in a way, like they're less sympathetic. I think they would be really more interesting if they had a lighter makeup and then you had a little bit of a sympathy, and then you realize, oh, these guys are evil because they're just going to take your organs and use them for, rather than just being kind of, oh my god, they're scary and they're ugly and they're evil, which is kind of where you start.
I think you fly back and forth between the Vidians with that. It's like it's at points they're sympathetic, then you get something like Faces when it's like splitting B'Elanna into two to harvest Klingon DNA and stealing a dude's face. You're just like, no, you've lost my sympathy now. So
I think that a lot of times their makeup is so extreme that I'm like, how good are you guys really at medical organ transplants? Because your face is rotting off. I kind of feel like they, some of them might eventually have like a single organ or a single skin swath patch thing that's at that point, and then you replace it. But the fact that they look like they are literally rotting all the time, I'm just like, I don't think you're as good at what you're trying to do as you think you are.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great point. Rick, keep going.
My last secondary system, and we kind of almost touched on it, but it's the holograms, the Herosian holograms who make a bid for the.
From Flesh and Blood. I love those guys. Yeah. Oh, that's a good.
Even though they're kind of loads of different races, but ultimately they are unified as one holographic.
No, that's
thing, bidding for their own freedom.
I think that's a great call. I love it. Claire, how about you? What's on your list?
So this might be kind of surprising. I actually have the Ocampans on my list. And I'll tell you why.
I did too. Yeah, go.
So I think I love their shortened lifespans. I think that's so interesting. I also think the show completely didn't explore it in a way that I want them to. I would love to know about the implications of their shortened lifespans on their culture. Like, these people have, let's say they live 10 years on average. Let's say 8 of those years are as an adult. What is it like to be an artist or a philosopher or a scholar of some sort and only have 8 years in order to not only get expertise in whatever your thing is, but then also put your own personal twist on it? Like, how does that propagate out into a culture? Does that mean that their art is very stagnant because people have such a short period of time to master doing their art and then deciding, like, this is my style as an artist? Or, like, I want to know, I really want to know more about that. Instead, it's just like, remember, Neelix is dating a 3-year-old, which I get. She's not like, I get it. She's an adult, but I just feel like,
they did. I mean, they did, obviously they threw that out right away. They didn't go into any of that stuff.
And I think it would have been really interesting if they had portrayed, Kess is the only example, so she may not know like the process for a sculptor on, an Ocampan sculptor, but if she could have just been a little bit more of an adult character, because she is an adult. But what is it like to be an adult when you're 3 years old? Like, you have very little life experience, but you're an adult. What the heck? I want to know more.
Okay, I like that. Good take.
Yeah. Also, I'm just gonna do it. The warp 10 salamanders completely belong in this episode.
Okay. Yep.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. I mean, I guess they do. All right. The ones that I have that haven't been mentioned yet, my toughest cut was the Malon. I love the Malon. I know that they're kind of one note, one trick pony, but I thought they were pretty fun in Night and Juggernaut and Phantome. The Void aliens, I dig them from the episode The Void, and also the Night aliens are really cool from the episode Night. And then I had the Devore from Counterpoint. I think they're super interesting. The Brunali from Child's Play, because what they did to Icheb was awful. I don't think anybody's mentioned the Talaxian yet. The Talaxians. And only other, I had the Bomar from the Raven. I picked them in our Best Costumes episode, because they are whacked. And my special shout out, of course, great greetings to you, the Tac Tac. We love the Tac Tac from Macrocosm. All right, super fun topic, awesome Voyager deep dive. But let's get into our regeneration cycle now and recap our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, I'm going to have you guys recap your picks, and I'm going to spring a little surprise on you at the end. Okay. Rick, break down your top 5.
Okay, my number 5 was the Mari from Random Thoughts. Number 4 was the Silver Blood from Demon. Number 3 was the Automated Personnel Units from Prototype. Number 2 was the Never-Named Dreaming Aliens from Waking Moments. And number 1 was the Drayans from Innocence.
I love it. Okay, Rick, if you had to choose one of your aliens to see in Prodigy, which one would it be?
I would probably like to see... I think I'd probably like to see the Dreaming Aliens again.
Okay, that would actually probably fit pretty well with the Prodigy setup. Claire, how about you? Recap your 5.
All right, I have the Teresians from Favorite Son. Who would have thought? The Photonic Beings from Bride of Chaotica. The Kobali from Ashes to Ashes. The Biomimetic Compound or Silver Blood from Course Oblivion. And the Voth from Distant Origin. And I'm going to answer your question.
Yes, what is your answer?
100%. Gotta be the Voth. I mean, if you got kids watching, dinosaur aliens are pretty much the coolest thing ever if you're a kid or 36-year-old woman.
That's actually a great point.
Like,
it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
All right, and just for the record, this is the first time Favorite Son has ever been picked on TrekRanks, which is probably not a big surprise for people. Okay, my recap, number 5, the Krenim from Year of Hell. Number 4, the Ankari and the nucleogenic life forms from Equinox. Number 3, the Hirogen from Message in a Bottle. Number 2, the Hierarchy and the Overlookers from Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy. And number 1, the Kaizon Imperium from Maneuvers. I love them. And if I had to pick one, man, I would love to see the Ankari, and I love those nucleogenic life forms. But I think I would pick the Krenim, because how much fun would that be to see that, to see them back? Okay, some stats, quick breakdown. We had 1 duplicate, which is super cool, the Silver Blood. And in my count of enemies, friends, and neutral is really even. So there were 7 that we would label as enemies, 2 as friend, and 6 that were neutral. So, and neutral is basically a friend. So 7 to 8 in that count. Our season breakdown, nothing from season 1 and season 7, 2 each from season 3 and 6. Season 2 and season 5 each had 3 picks. And season 4 led the way with 5 picks. Awesome topic. Great conversation. Really appreciate that, guys. Super fun. But as always, we've now been hit by a temporal distortion. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The temporal distortions are fracturing space-time throughout the ship.
Cause?
Unknown.
Oh, we know the cause, Mr. Tuvok. It's all the amazing feedback that we continue to receive from our listeners here at TrekRanks. And this week's Temporal Distortion has sent us back to episode 113 and our top 5 Kurtzman era episodes. And so we got in about 25 or 30, we got about 30 lists in. And I just decided to break down the stats on kind of what episodes were picked by everybody. So we had 14 different episodes that were mentioned in all these lists, including 6 from Discovery, 2 from the Kelvin timeline, 3 from Picard, 2 from Short Treks, and 1 from Lower Decks. So basically everything. Sorry, these are the number 1 picks from everybody's list. All right, here's all the episodes that got at least 1 vote for the number 1 favorite Kurtzman era episode. From Discovery, there was 6 that got picked: Lethe, New Eden, If Memory Serves, Project Daedalus, Forget Me Not, and Unification 3. From the Kelvin timeline, there was a vote for 2009 and Into Darkness. Crazy. From Picard, Nepenthe, Broken Pieces, and Et in Arcadia Ego Part 2. From the Short Treks, there was 2, Calypso and Children of Mars. And from Lower Decks, 1 episode got a top spot, Crisis Point. The number 1, the vote getters, Calypso had 2 total. And then there was 2 episodes that each had 3 picks. If Memory Serves and Unification 3 both got 3 votes for the top spot. And the number 1 episode of all the feedback we got with 4 number 1 positions, probably easy to predict, is Nepenthe from Star Trek Picard. Amazing episode. And I just thought I'd break down some of those episode titles that got recognition from that, from all the feedback we got from everybody. So once again, those picks definitely good enough to clear ourselves from this week's Temporal Distortion. So as always, I want to thank everyone again for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Please keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 Delta Quadrant species or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call up to Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. Or you can just record the list and then send me a DM and we can connect that way too if it's easier. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are doing what I think is going to be a really good one. For sure, it's going to be a good feel-good episode. We're doing our top 5 episodes that make you feel like a kid again. So Claire and Rick, if you had to choose one episode that makes you feel like a kid again, what would it be? Claire, what do you got?
Okay, I'm going to go out of the box on this one, and I'm going to say that it's the Star Trek behind the scenes episode of The Reading Rainbow. Because I watched The Reading Rainbow religiously as a little kid, and every single time I was like, I hope it's this one again. So there you go.
I was too old to enjoy The Reading Rainbow and never did, but I love that pick. I think a lot of people feel that way. Rick, how about you, man? What's an episode that makes you feel like a kid again when you watch it?
I probably Looking for Parmark in All the Wrong Places.
Okay.
Because I just love that episode. It makes me laugh. It makes me laugh so much.
I love that. And spoiler alert, that was my number 1 Dax episode.
Fantastic.
Love it.
I love it. Yeah, it was super fun. Okay, that's a good one. I love that. This is going to be a fun topic. I think we'll get a lot of cool answers from people for why they're choosing those episodes.
However, before we do get all that great feedback, editor's notes, we moved that episode back in our lineup, so that's now going to be episode number 124. And next week, we are actually doing episode 122, our top 5 Lower Decks Season 2 moments, which snuck up on us in the schedule. So, Lower Decks is next. Then we're doing our Discovery preview show. And then, episode 124, our top 5 episodes that make you feel like a kid again.
All right, so before we wrap it up, a huge thanks to Claire Little and Rick Everson. Really appreciate you guys both making time to be on the show.
I was wondering if you could show me how to access these subspace communications logs.
And we're going to do that right now, Neelix. So any final Trek subspace communications, either one of you guys want to relay before we depart? Rick?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me back on. It's been absolutely immensely fun times. And yeah, please do listen to 10 Backward.
10 backwards. Great podcast. We love it. Claire, thanks for coming back on.
Thank you. I do not have a podcast, but you should listen to everyone else's podcasts.
So many great Star Trek podcasts. All right. Thanks, everyone, for engaging with us again here on episode 121 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Let me get this straight. Transdimensional aliens have mistaken your Captain Proton simulation for reality.
Yes, ma'am.
And now an armed conflict has broken out between these aliens and Chaotica's holographic army.
Yes, ma'am. His army of evil.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
How do you propose to defeat Chaotica?
Well, he's been attacking the aliens with his death ray.
It's a shame we don't have one.